David was sent to explore a new planet, far from Earth, as part of a deep space mission. He had been working as a scout for several months, charting the stars and searching for potential alien life. But nothing could prepare him for what he found. On the surface of this distant world, the air was thick with mist. The ground was covered in strange, colorful plants that seemed to glow in the low light. David's mission was simple: collect samples and return to his ship. But as he ventured deeper into the jungle, something strange caught his eye. A figure stood in the distance, barely visible through the mist. At first, David thought it was an illusion. But as he stepped closer, he realized it was a woman, a tall alien woman. Her skin a soft shade of violet, with hair that shimmered like starlight. She stood perfectly still, her eyes locked onto him, as if she had been waiting. For him, David's heart raced. He had encountered many alien species in his travels, but none had ever looked like this. She was stunning in a way he couldn't describe. Her presence was powerful, and yet she didn't speak. The air around her felt different, charged, like something important was about to happen. "Are you ... real?" David finally asked, his voice sounding strange in the quiet of the jungle. The alien woman's lips curled into a slight smile, but she didn't answer. Instead, she tilted her head as if studying him. Her eyes were large and dark, like pools of midnight, and for a moment, David felt as if she could see into his very soul. He took a few cautious steps forward, trying to steady his breathing. He wasn't sure what to do. He had never been trained to deal with a situation like this. His orders were clear: gather data, report back. But standing in front of this alien, all his training seemed useless. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice a little more confident now. "Who are you?" she finally spoke, her voice soft but clear, like the sound of wind brushing through leaves. "I am someone who has been waiting." "Waiting for what?" David asked, still unsure of what this encounter meant. "For you," she replied, her gaze never leaving his. The words sent a shiver down his spine, though he couldn't explain why. David didn't know what to say to that. He had heard of alien species before, but nothing like this, nothing that could make him feel so drawn to someone he had just met. The silence stretched between them, uncomfortable but strangely magnetic. David didn't want to be the first to turn away, but he also didn't know what else to do. His thoughts raced. Was she dangerous? He trust her? He reached for his communicator, but as his hand touched the device, she moved. She was suddenly right in front of him, her body close enough that he could feel the heat from her skin. David froze, heart pounding. The way she moved was unlike anything he had ever seen. She didn't walk. She glided. "Do not be afraid," she said softly, almost as if she was reading his thoughts. "I won't hurt you." David swallowed hard. The words were calming, but there was still something about her presence that made him uneasy. Something in the air felt different, as if the world itself was shifting. "Why are you here?" he asked again, trying to steady his nerves. The alien woman looked into his eyes for a long moment before she spoke. "I have been searching for you." David blinked, his confusion growing. "For me?" he repeated. "Yes," she said, her voice like a whisper. "For you, David." David stepped back, his mind racing. How did she know his name? Who was she? His training as a scout had never prepared him for something like this. He'd never encountered an alien who knew his name before. Was it a coincidence or something more? "Who are you?" he asked again, his voice a little firmer now. Though he was still unsure, the alien woman finally took a step back, her eyes softening. "My name is Lyra. I am not like the others you've encountered." David tried to make sense of what she was saying. There were many alien species in the galaxy, but they were usually hostile or distant. He had never met one that seemed so ... different, so alive with energy. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. Lyra smiled, and this time her smile was warm, not teasing. "I want nothing from you, David. I only wish to show you something." David's heart skipped a beat. What could she possibly want? To show him? Was it dangerous? His thoughts were racing as he tried to figure out what was going on. But one thing was clear: this was no ordinary alien. Somehow this was just the beginning of something much bigger than he could have ever imagined. David couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Standing in front of Lyra, he couldn't decide if he should feel calm or fearful. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, powerful yet graceful, beautiful yet mysterious. Everything about her seemed different, and it made him question his instincts. "I'm not here to harm you," Lyra said again, her voice smooth and soft. Her eyes locked onto his, and for a moment David felt as if she could see everything, every fear, every doubt, every secret he had ever kept. It was unnerving, yet he couldn't pull away. David took a deep breath, trying to clear his mind. "You said you've been searching for me. ... Why?" Lyra's expression softened, but there was a serious edge in her gaze. "Because you have something I need. You have the power to change everything." David frowned. "What are you talking about?" "You don't understand yet, but you will," she replied, her voice carrying a weight that made David's heart race. He had no idea what she meant, but the urgency in her tone was undeniable. "I've been following the signals from Earth for some time," Lyra continued, stepping closer to David. Her eyes never left his. "My people, ... We are in a fight for our survival. And you, David, might be the key to saving us." David shook his head in confusion. "I'm just a scout. What could I possibly do?" Lyra smiled, but it wasn't the soft, comforting smile she had given him before. This one was sharp and knowing. "You are more than just a scout. You have the power to bring about change if you're willing to risk everything." David didn't know how to respond. He'd been trained for missions, not for saving entire civilizations, and the idea of risking everything was terrifying. But something in Lyra's eyes made him feel that if he didn't help, the consequences would be worse than anything he could imagine. "I don't even know you," he said, his voice a little shaky. "How can I trust you?" Lyra paused for a moment, as if considering his question. Then she stepped back, her gaze softening. "You don't have to trust me yet, David, but you will. We are tied to each other now, whether you like it or not." David frowned. What did she mean by that? How could they be tied? And why was he suddenly feeling a strange pull towards hers, something beyond just curiosity or duty? Before David could ask more questions, Lyra turned and began walking away, her movements fluid and graceful. "Come with me," she called over her shoulder. "I will show you everything." David hesitated for a moment. He could stay here, try to figure things out on his own, or he could follow her. Something told him that staying would only bring more confusion. And so he made his decision. He followed. They walked deeper into the jungle, past strange, glowing trees and plants. The air was thick with the scent of alien flowers, and the ground beneath their feet felt soft, almost like it was alive. Had never seen anything like it. Every step felt like they were moving through a dream, one that he couldn't wake up from. Finally, they came to a clearing. In the center stood a large, sleek ship's surface, glistening under the strange sky. It was unlike any technology David had ever seen. It didn't look like a warship, but rather a work of art, crafted with precision and elegance. The ship was clearly advanced, and it seemed to hum with an energy that David could feel in his chest. "This is my ship," Lyra said, turning to face him. "It's not just any ship. It's a beacon of hope. But it has been damaged, and now it requires ... You." David stared at her, completely confused. "Why me?" "'Cause you have the knowledge," Lyra said. "You've seen Earth's technology. You understand how things work. My people, we've never been able to fix it ourselves. But you, David, you can." David looked at the ship again, then back at Lyra. "I don't know anything about fixing ships. I'm a scout, not an engineer." "You don't have to be an engineer," Lyra replied. "I've seen the way your species adapts. You think differently from everyone else. You have an ability to solve problems we cannot." David felt a rush of uncertainty. He wasn't sure what she was getting at, but the idea of working on something like this, something so far beyond his expertise, was both overwhelming and exciting. "If you're asking me to fix this ship," he said slowly, "then I have to ask, what do you really want from me, Lyra?" Her gaze softened again, and for a brief moment, David saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. I don't want anything from you, David. I'm only asking for your help. If we can repair the ship, we can reach my people, and we can end this war. You don't have to trust me, but I promise you, I am not your enemy." David wanted to believe her. He wanted to trust her. But something held him back. She was beautiful, and she was powerful, but she was also a mystery. A dangerous mystery. And even though he felt drawn to her, there was still a nagging feeling in the pit of his stomach that he couldn't ignore. "Why me?" he asked again, his voice quiet. Lyra smiled, and for a moment, the sharpness in her expression softened. "Because I believe in you, David, and I believe in what humanity can do." David stared at her for a long moment, his mind swirling with questions. He had no answers. But one thing was clear. His life was about to change, and he had no idea how far this journey would take him or how dangerous it would become. David's mind was racing. He had agreed to help Lyra, but every step he took in the alien ship made him feel more unsure of what he was getting into. The sleek, polished walls of the ship seemed to hum with energy, and the soft glow of strange lights bathed the room in an eerie calm. David couldn't help but feel that every corner held a secret, and he wasn't sure if he was ready to uncover them. Lyra was already at work, her delicate hands moving with practiced ease as she worked. On the ship's systems, David stood back, watching her in awe. There was something so natural about the way she moved. She didn't look like someone who had been fighting a war for centuries. She looked like someone who had always been in control, who had always known what she was doing. "I still don't understand how you think I can help," David said, trying to break the silence. He was trying to focus on the task at hand, but his thoughts kept wandering. "I'm just a scout. I don't fix ships." Lyra didn't look up as she adjusted a panel on the wall. "You have a unique way of thinking," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "I've watched your people. You find solutions where others see problems. You are the key to fixing this." David didn't respond right away. He wasn't sure if she was just being kind or if she actually believed it. He wasn't an engineer. He didn't know how to fix a ship, let alone one like this. And Lyra's eyes made him want to try. Lyra paused for a moment and turned to face him. "I know this is difficult for you, but you must trust me. I wouldn't ask for your help if I didn't believe you were capable." David met her gaze, her dark eyes holding him in place. She was right about one thing: he had never backed down from a challenge. But this was different. This wasn't just about fixing a piece of technology. This was about helping an alien, an enemy in a war that had nothing to do with him. Yet he couldn't deny the pull he felt towards her. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling a wave of frustration. "Okay," he said finally, "I'll try, but I can't promise anything." Lyra's expression softened, and a small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "That's all I ask." David stepped closer, his heart still racing. He didn't know why, but every time he was near her, his body felt alive with energy. It wasn't just the ship or the mission, it was her. There was something about her that was pulling him in, making it hard to focus on anything else. As he watched her work, his thoughts shifted. Why had she chosen him? What was it about him, out of all the humans, that had made her believe he was the one who could help? And why did he feel like he was the one who needed to help her? "Lyra," he said, his voice a little quieter this time. "Why me? I'm not special. I'm just a guy from Earth, trying to do my job." "I don't understand why you think I can do something like this." Lyra turned away from the panel and faced him. She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming yet comforting. "You're wrong," she said softly. "You are special. You just haven't realized it yet. The universe has a way of bringing people together for a reason, David. We were meant to meet." David swallowed hard, unsure of how to respond. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to think that his presence here in this moment meant something greater than just a routine mission gone wrong. The idea that he was part of something bigger was difficult to accept. "Why do you need me?" he asked again. "What's really going on, Lyra?" For the first time, Lyra's expression became serious. She didn't answer immediately, but when she spoke, her voice was softer, more urgent. I told you before, my people are in danger. But the war isn't what it seems. There are forces at play, forces that even I don't fully understand. This ship is the key to stopping everything. It's not just a ship, David. It's a weapon that can change the fate of entire worlds. David felt a chill run down his spine. A weapon? I thought you were just trying to get home. What does this ship have to do with a war? Lyra's gaze turned cold. This ship isn't just for traveling. It was designed to protect my people, to give us an advantage over our enemies. But it's incomplete. I need your help to fix it. Before the war spreads to places it shouldn't, David's mind spun as he tried to process what she had just told him. A weapon? This wasn't just some diplomatic mission. It was about war, and he was caught in the middle of it. He had no idea what to believe anymore. Lyra stepped closer again, and this time there was a softness in her voice that made David's heart skip a beat. I'm not asking you to fight, David. I'm asking you to help me save my people. And maybe in doing so, you'll save yours as well. David felt a lump form in his throat. There was no turning back now. He had already made a choice when he agreed to help her, and he couldn't back out. But the deeper he got into this, the more dangerous it seemed. The stakes were higher than he ever could have imagined. As he looked into her eyes, he knew one thing for sure: this was no longer just about fixing a ship. This was about survival. For both their worlds, the days that followed were a blur of hard work and silent tension. David found himself spending most of his time in the ship with Lyra, trying to repair what he could. She was always there, guiding him, watching him, and sometimes offering him that soft, knowing smile that left his heart racing. But no matter how much time they spent together, David still didn't fully understand why he was here, why he felt this strange pull toward her. The ship was slowly coming together, systems beginning to hum to life. Lyra's confidence in him only seemed to grow, and David couldn't help but feel that every moment he spent working beside her made him more attached to her. One evening, after another long day of working, they sat in the quiet control room of the ship, a soft glow lighting the space around them. David was trying to focus on the task at hand, but he kept glancing at Lyra, was staring out at the distant stars. You've been quiet today, David said, breaking the silence. His voice felt heavy in the stillness of the room. Lyra turned to him, her eyes searching his face. I'm just thinking, she said softly. David raised an eyebrow. About what? She hesitated, then looked back out at the stars. About everything, she said, her voice distant. About what comes next. About you. David's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure what she meant by that last part, but something in her tone made his stomach twist. Me? He asked, his voice quieter than usual. What do you mean? Lyra smiled slightly, though there was a sadness behind it. You've changed everything, David. I never expected ... this. David swallowed, unsure of where this conversation was going. He didn't know if he wanted to hear the answer. There was something in the way she said it, something that made him feel both excited and terrified at the same time. I didn't ask for any of this, David said quickly, trying to push the unease away. I'm just trying to help you fix the ship. I didn't sign up for any of the ... other stuff. Lyra's gaze softened, and for a moment she didn't speak. She walked over to him, closing the space between them, and he felt his breath catch in his throat. Her presence was overwhelming, her beauty hard to ignore. But it wasn't just her looks. It was the way she made him feel, like everything he had known was suddenly turned upside down. I never asked you to, she replied, her voice low. But sometimes ... things happen, and we have to decide whether we'll follow them. David's heart pounded. Was she talking about him? About the way they had grown closer? He couldn't tell. But everything inside him told him to back away. To keep his distance, he wasn't supposed to get close to her. He was supposed to fix the ship and go home. That was it. But despite the warnings in his mind, he found himself standing there, unable to move, his eyes locked with hers. Lyra stepped even closer, her breath warm against his face. "You don't have to fight it, David," she whispered. "You're not the only one who feels this connection. I can see it in your eyes." David's pulse quickened, and his thoughts became a blur. He had been trying to ignore the way she made him feel, the way his heart raced every time she was near him. It was impossible. She was right. He did feel something deep and powerful that he couldn't explain. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. All he could do was stand there, caught in her gaze, drawn to her in a way he had never experienced before. "I don't know what this is," David finally managed to say, his voice thick with uncertainty. "I don't know what we're doing." Here, Lyra reached out, gently touching his arm. The touch was light, but it sent a shock through him. "We're doing what we need to do," she said, her voice steady. "We're doing what the universe has brought us together to do." David looked down at her hand, still resting on his arm, and felt his chest tighten. "And what's that?" he asked, barely above a whisper. Lyra didn't answer right away. She moved even closer, until their faces were just inches apart. He could feel the heat from her body, and it made his heart race even faster. "What if it's not just about the ship?" she asked, her voice barely audible. David's breath hitched. He didn't know how to respond, couldn't think straight. He could feel her closeness, the weight of her gaze on him, and everything inside him was screaming to pull away, to not let himself get caught in whatever this was. But part of him didn't want to. Part of him wanted to step closer, to let this feeling take over. "Lyra, we can't," he began. But his words were cut off as Lyra closed the distance between them. Before he could stop himself, she kissed him. The world around him seemed to disappear. He didn't know how long it lasted, but it felt like time had stopped. When she pulled away, David was left breathless, his heart pounding in his chest. "I didn't mean for that to happen, Lyra," whispered, her eyes searching his face. "But I couldn't fight it any longer, and neither could you." David was stunned. His mind was still spinning from the kiss, his thoughts a tangled mess. He had never expected something like this to happen, and he didn't know how to handle it. But the pull he felt toward her was undeniable. Everything about her, her strength, her beauty, her mystery had captivated him in a way he hadn't experienced before. He stepped back, his heart still racing. "Lyra, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she said softly, her voice full of understanding. "I just needed you to know." David's mind was still in chaos, but he knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same between them again. They had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The days that followed were filled with a quiet tension. David and Lyra worked side by side, repairing the ship, learning to trust each other more with every passing moment. Yet, despite the progress they made on the ship, something else was growing, something deeper than either of them could deny. David had never felt so conflicted. His thoughts were constantly occupied by the closeness he felt with Lyra, but he couldn't shake the fear that this was all moving too fast. He had never been part of something like this. The mission, the ship, Lyrad, they were all so different from the life he had known on Earth, and yet he couldn't bring himself to pull away from it. He couldn't pull away from her. They were sitting together in the control room one evening, their work mostly finished for the day. Lyra had been explaining more about the ship's systems, how they could use the ship's energy to reach her people and stop the war. But David was finding it hard to focus. His mind kept wandering back to her, how she looked when she smiled, the way her voice seemed to calm him even in the middle of chaos. Lyra's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "You're quiet again. What's going on in that mind of yours?" David looked at her, meeting her dark gaze. For a moment he hesitated. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," he said softly. "This mission, helping you. All so much more than I signed up for. I never imagined that it would get this complicated." Lyra tilted her head, her expression gentle but intense. "Complicated? This isn't complicated, David. This is necessary. My people need this. You've seen what's at stake." David nodded, but the unease in his chest wasn't gone. He knew she was right. They had come so far already. The ship was almost ready, and they were so close to achieving their goal. But there was a deeper question David had been avoiding. What would happen after this? After the mission was over, after the war was stopped, what would happen between him and Lyra? Would they just part ways like it had never happened? Or would he have to face the truth of what he was feeling for her? I know you're doing this. For your people, David said quietly. But what about us? What happens when we finish this mission? What happens when we go back to our worlds? Lyra didn't speak immediately. She stood up and walked over to the ship's window, looking out at the stars. The silence between them felt heavy, like it carried the weight of everything they had been through together. After a few moments, she finally turned to him. I don't know, she admitted softly. But I do know that we can't focus on what's next until we finish what we're doing now. We can't look ahead too much. It'll only make us doubt ourselves. David's heart sank as he looked at her. He understood what she meant. They had to focus on the task at hand, on fixing the ship, on ending the war. But deep down, David knew that ignoring their feelings wouldn't make them go away. He wasn't sure if that made him afraid or relieved. Lyra, he began, his voice tight with emotion. I don't know what to do anymore. Part of me wants to believe we can make this work, that we can stop the war and then go back to our lives. But another part of me, ... Another part is scared of what's going to happen when it's all over. Lyra stepped closer to him, her gaze unwavering. David, she said softly, her voice full of warmth and understanding, I never asked you to make any promises. I just asked for your help, but I need you to understand this is what we're doing here. It's more than just the mission. And we're part of something bigger. And even if we don't have all the answers right now, we're in this together. David looked at her, feeling a wave of emotion wash over him. It was true. They had become part of something bigger, something that neither of them had expected. But he wasn't ready to walk away, not from Lyra, not from what they had built. Together, he could feel it now. More than ever, his connection to her was real. The air between them seemed to thicken as they stood in the quiet control room, and David could hear the sound of his own breath. It was the quiet before the storm. They were so close to their goal, yet so far from knowing what the future held for them. The war, the ship, everything. It was all part of a bigger picture. But in that moment, standing next to Lyra, David realized there was something else he had to face. He had to make a choice. Lyra. I'm not afraid of the war, he said, his voice steady now. I'm not afraid of the danger or the unknown. What scares me, ... is what happens when all this is over. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her gaze searching his face. Then, with a soft smile, she spoke again. Then don't worry about that right now. Worry about what's right in front of you. We're closer to ending this than we've ever been. David nodded, a sense of resolve settling in his chest. He didn't know what the future would bring, but for the first time in a long time, he was ready to face it. He was ready to finish this, no matter the outcome. I'm with you, he said, his voice steady and sure. Whatever comes next, I'm with you. Lyra's smile grew, and for a moment, David could see the relief in her eyes. It wasn't just about fixing the ship. It wasn't just about ending the war. It was about something more, something neither of them could yet understand. But they were in it together, and that was enough. Then let's finish this, she said softly. And together, they turned their focus back to the ship. Didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, they knew that whatever happened, they would face it together. The final stages of the mission had arrived, and everything was coming to a head. The ship was almost fully repaired, its systems coming online one by one, humming with power. The war that Lyra had warned David about was closer than ever, and the weight of what they were about to do pressed down on both of them. David sat in the control room, looking out at the stars through the window. The universe stretched out before him, vast and mysterious. Yet in that moment, it felt smaller, more contained. The unknowns had narrowed to a point, and now he had to make a choice about the mission, about Lyra, and about his own future. The weight of everything hung over him. Lyra walked into the room, her footsteps soft against the metal floor. She paused beside him, her presence filling the space as always. But there was something different about her today. Her usual calm confidence had a touch of urgency, sharpness in her eyes that David hadn't seen before. We're almost there, she said quietly, her voice steady. The ship is ready. It's time. David turned to face her. And then, what? Her gaze met his, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The unspoken question hung between them. Once the ship was fully operational, they would reach her people and end the war. No, but after that, what would happen to them? Could they just go back to their separate worlds, like nothing had changed? David wasn't so sure. I don't know, Lyra finally answered, her voice softer now. But I do know that we've done everything we can. It's up to the rest now. David swallowed hard, his throat dry. Had never imagined that this mission would turn into something so personal. And yet, despite the doubts and the uncertainty, there was a part of him that didn't want to let go. Part of him wanted to believe that their connection meant something. There was more to their story than just this war. We've come this far, David said, standing up from his seat. We've got one shot at this. No turning back. Lyra nodded, her expression more serious now. No turning back. As they prepared to launch the final phase of their mission, the tension between them became almost unbearable. The mission had always been about fixing the ship, helping Lyra, and stopping a war. But now it was about something more or something. Neither of them could define, but both of them felt. The engines roared to life, and the ship's systems flared up. David could feel the ship's energy, its power, coursing through the air. It was as if the entire ship was alive, ready to take them to the heart of the conflict. The stakes were high, higher than anything David had ever faced before. This is it, Lyra said, her eyes never leaving the control panel. Yes. We go in, we deliver the power, and we end this war. David nodded, but his thoughts were far from the mission. Every moment with Lyra had changed him. He had never expected to find someone like her, someone who had become more than just a partner in a mission. The way she had opened up to him, trusted him. And now, he couldn't stop wondering what would happen when this was over. He glanced at her again, his chest tight, and after that, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, Lyra's. Eyes softened, but she didn't answer right away. She took a breath and turned to face him fully. We'll deal with it when it's over, she said, her voice firm but tender. We don't need to know the answers right now. We just need to finish this. David's heart skipped a beat. She was right. The future didn't matter, not right now. All that mattered was the mission, stopping the war and getting back. To their people, everything else could wait. Maybe it wouldn't. Either way, they had no time to waste. All right, David said. Pushing all of his conflicting emotions aside for the moment, he stepped up to the controls beside Lyra, his hand brushing against hers. There was no turning back now. They had made it this far, and now they would see it through to the end. With a final deep breath, Lyra activated the ship's engines. The stars outside the window seemed to blur as the ship surged forward. Faster and faster, toward the heart of the war. David's mind raced. They were about to face the unknown, the moment of truth. But despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, he felt a strange peace settle in his chest. They had done everything they could. All they had to do now was follow through. As the ship sped through the galaxy, heading toward the battlefield, David glanced at Lyra once more. She caught his gaze and smiled softly, her expression more open than it had ever been. He wanted to say something, anything, to ease the tension between them, but words felt like they were stuck in his throat. Instead, he simply nodded, and for the first time, he felt sure of one thing. Whatever came next, he wouldn't be facing it alone. The ship hurtled through space, and soon the first signs of the battle appeared. The enemies that had long threatened Lyra's people were waiting for them, ready to strike. But David and Lyra had one last trick up their sleeves of the ship that was more than just a vessel, more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of hope, a chance to end the war once and for all. As they approached the enemy fleet, David's heart raced. The moment had come. The ship's systems were fully powered, the mission was on track. But there was still a nagging feeling inside him. He couldn't shake the thought of what would happen when it was over. Would Lyra and he be forced to part ways? Or would this be the beginning of something more? They were about to find out. With a steady hand, Lyra activated the ship's weapon systems, and the battle began. The universe would never be the same after this. Neither would David and Lyra.